You probably think American food is exactly that. American. Hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, fried chicken. Foods you associate with baseball games, diners, fast food chains, and backyard barbecues. But what if I told you that almost none of them were actually invented in America? And more importantly, what if the real story is even more surprising than that? Because these foods didn't just come from somewhere else. They were completely transformed by immigration, culture clashes, and unexpected historical accidents. And by the end of this video, you won't see American food the same way again. Let's start with something simple, or at least something that looks simple.
The hot dog. Probably one of the most American foods you can imagine. Baseball games, street vendors, 4th of July. But its story starts far from America, Germany. German immigrants brought sausages called Frankfurters and Dachshund sausages to the United States in the 1800s. At first, nothing special, just meat in casing. But here's where things start to shift. In Europe, they were eaten with utensils, formal, structured. In America, someone had a completely different idea. Put it inside bread. Make it portable, street-ready. That single change turned it from immigrant food into national identity. But here's the twist most people miss. The hot dog didn't become American because it was improved. It became American because it was simplified. Now let's go deeper. The hamburger. Arguably the most iconic fast food in the world. But again, not American. It traces back to Hamburg, Germany. Immigrants brought what was called Hamburg steak. Just minced beef, seasoned, nothing fancy. But in America, something changed again. A simple innovation. Put it between bread. But that's not the real transformation. The real shift happened later. Factories, fast food chains, mass production. What was once a European dish became an industrial symbol of modern America. And here's the open loop you need to remember. Every time America creates a food, it's actually scaling something that already existed. And now we get to something more emotional. Pizza. New York slices. Chicago deep dish. Late night delivery. It feels like pure American culture. But it starts in Italy. Italian immigrants brought pizza to the United States in the late 19th century. At first, it was ignored, seen as food for immigrants, not mainstream. But then something changed. Americans adopted it. And then they rebuilt it. More cheese, bigger portions, faster production, different styles. But here's the key twist. In Italy, pizza was regional tradition. In America, it became mass identity. Same food, completely different meaning. And what happens next might surprise you even more. Because pizza wasn't the last transformation. It was just the beginning. Bagels. A breakfast staple, especially in places like New York. But bagels came with Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. Originally, they were dense, simple, and deeply tied to tradition. Not fast food, not commercial, cultural food. But in America, everything changed again. Bigger size, softer texture, mass production. And slowly, bagels stopped being ethnic food. They became everyday food. And this is where the pattern becomes obvious. Immigration doesn't just bring food. It transforms it into something unrecognizable from its origin. But the next example takes this even further. Because now we're entering foods with hidden conflict. The pastrami, a classic New York deli staple. Stacked sandwiches, rye bread, mustard, feels deeply American, but its origin is Romania. It began as a preservation technique. Salt, smoke, spice, a way to make meat last longer. Jewish immigrants brought it to America, and something unexpected happened. It stopped being survival food. It became luxury deli culture. Same base ingredient, completely different identity. And what comes next is where things get controversial. Because now, we're going to get into something even more divisive. Foods that don't just come from immigration, but from cultural collision. Fried chicken, tacos, and something you probably eat every week without realizing its origin. But that is where things get really interesting. Let's move into something more complex. Fried chicken. It feels like pure American Southern culture. Crunchy, seasoned, iconic. But here's the truth. It doesn't come from one place. Scottish immigrants brought the technique of frying chicken in fat, but they didn't season it much. Then West African cooking traditions entered the picture, and they brought something completely different. Spices, flavor, depth. And in America, those two traditions collided. The result wasn't Scottish food. It wasn't African food. It became something entirely new. Southern fried chicken. And here's the twist most people miss. This wasn't copying. This was fusion under pressure, culture mixing in real time. And that pattern keeps repeating. But now we go somewhere even more controversial, because this next food is where identity becomes argument. Tacos. Everyone associates them with Mexico, and that part is absolutely true. But the version most Americans eat today, that's something else entirely. Mexican immigrants brought authentic recipes into the United States. Traditional tacos were simple, soft tortillas, fresh ingredients, minimal processing. But in America, something changed. Hard shells, ground beef, shredded cheese, a completely different structure. So the question becomes, is that still Mexican food, or is it something new entirely? And here's where it gets interesting, because tacos didn't lose their identity. They split into two versions, one traditional, one adapted, and both now exist side by side. But the next example might surprise you even more, because it feels completely American, but isn't at all. Mac and cheese, comfort food, childhood memories, pure nostalgia. It feels like America in a bowl, but the concept of pasta with cheese existed in Europe long before America popularized it. It was brought over and slowly integrated into American cuisine. Even early political figures encountered it abroad and helped introduce it into American culture. One of them was Thomas Jefferson, but the real transformation happened later, because what started as a refined dish became mass-produced comfort food, boxed, instant, cheap, everywhere. And here's the key pattern again. America doesn't just adopt food, it industrializes it. And that changes everything. But now, we're approaching the final stretch, and the pattern is about to become undeniable. Pretzels. Simple, salty, everywhere. Stadiums, malls, street vendors. But pretzels come from Europe, especially Germany. German immigrants brought them to the United States, where they were cheap, easy to make, and highly adaptable. In America, they evolved into two forms, soft pretzels and mass-produced crunchy snacks. Same origin, two completely different products. And this is the hidden theme of everything so far. Immigration doesn't just bring food, it fragments and multiplies it. But now we reach the final example, and it's the most unexpected transformation of all. Ice cream. It feels universal. Every country has it. Every culture enjoys it, but it didn't originate in America. Early versions existed in Europe centuries ago. What America did differently was scale, mass production, industrial distribution, endless flavor experimentation. Ice cream didn't become American because it was invented here. It became American because it was made everywhere. And that final transformation brings everything together. Because when you look at all of this together, a clear pattern emerges. Hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, bagels, pastrami, fried chicken, tacos, mac and cheese, pretzels, ice cream. Almost none of them started in America, but all of them became American. And that's the key point most people miss. American food is not defined by origin. It's defined by transformation, by immigration, by adaptation, by cultures colliding and creating something new. So the next time you eat a burger, a slice of pizza, or a hot dog, remember this. You are not just eating food. You are eating history. And that history came from everywhere.